We'll live stream the movie, but we'll come up with a drinking game. So while we watch this terrible movie, we have to drink. And then and so by the time our pitch happens, we should be super drunk. Then we'll write our pitches and then record an episode while we're inebriated. But the drinking game will happen during the movie.
I deeply love this.
Yeah, I think this is one of my better ideas. Hold on, I need to write this down.
Welcome. You are entering into a strange dimension. A dimension where narratives from across space and time come together. Narratives that could have, might have, or should have been all exist here in one space. This is CineCasters Ultimate Timeline.
Hello, and welcome to CineCasters. This is the show where we watch movies and talk about them, and sometimes we decide that we want to repitch them because we think they could have been even better. And today, I am joined, as always, by my very good friend, Andrew DeYoung.
Hey, what's going on, guys? And of course, your name is Nate Draper.
My name is Nate Draper, yes. And just in case you missed that from the last 12 episodes or so.
Actually, not just 12 episodes. This marks our 25th episode.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, I know that's. We haven't been doing them every week. Although lately we have. Lately we've been doing them every week. So if you're enjoying them doing them us doing them every week, that's awesome. We're really enjoying doing them every week. I actually I miss it when we don't do it. I really miss it, and not just hanging out, but I do miss hanging out, but also just being philosophical and thoughtful about media in general actually just gets me really giddy. It makes my pants super fucking tight.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Maybe I'll just mention that before this podcast started, I had a lot to drink. Not a little bit, but a lot to drink. And it's been a while since I finished, but I'm a little bit inebriated.
Yeah, so I am actually very jealous because I am sober. So I'm wishing that you had told me so that I could have done the same thing, but that's okay.
I wasn't planning on it. It just kind of happened.
I mean, I guess there was that one time I did watch Pirates of the Caribbean stoned. No, we didn't record the episode stoned. I did watch the movie stoned. It may have affected my viewing of it, but I gotta say it was way more enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of weed, but I kind of wish that I had experienced it the same way.
Oh, you know what? It's so much better.
Yeah. Speaking of watching movies while you're high, or at least you feel like you're high, today for our 25th episode, we're doing The Adjustment Bureau, which is a bit of a trip.
Bureau. It's definitely a bit of a trip. But yes, the Matt Damon and Emily Blunt movie that came out in 2011?
15?
No, 15. Yeah, it was a bit later than that. Yeah, it was like mid 2010s.
Yeah. And, okay, what are your thoughts on goods and bads about The Adjustment Bureau?
Yeah, okay. Thoughts of good and bad. Okay, so I'll start with what I thought worked, because there are some things that I thought worked. I always think the theme of fate and free will is an interesting thing to explore. So I just found that fascinating as a concept, so that was cool. I do think the performances are good. I do think the cast is good. I think the characters are weak, but I think they did the best they could making them believable.
Yeah.
So kudos to the actors for making what I think is actually not a great movie work as well as it did. The music is amazing. It's Thomas Newman. He's just amazing.
He does a good job.
Yeah, of course. There were some interesting set pieces. I thought there were some interesting set pieces, interesting sets, interesting locations that they filmed on, and some of the ways in which they blended together. Specifically, that sequence where they're walking through doors was interesting.
So cool.
It was a very cool sequence. Unfortunately, I think I checked out by that point in the movie, and I'm not gonna lie. I spent maybe the last 30 minutes, I just sort of skimmed through it. I didn't really pay very close attention because by that point, I was like, I'm just sort of done with this.
Because that's the part that's good.
See, what's interesting,
the good part.
It was... The problem is, well, I'll get into it. I think just because it was set up so poorly, by the time I got there, I just went, I don't care. I'm sorry, I just don't care. There was another thing that occurred to me watching this. It's interesting how recently, I don't know if this is a trend. I don't know if it's a... Yeah, I couldn't say it's a trend, but there is this interesting transition that's happened in film. Whenever angelic beings are portrayed, there's this way in which they're now they're not angels, they're bureaucrats, which I find very interesting. So another example of this is in what's that Netflix show we both really liked?
The Good Place.
The Good Place. Yeah. Like the whole idea is that it's actually a bureaucracy, which I just think is funny. I don't know. I was watching this and I reflected on that.
I think it is funny too. Yeah. If I had to comment on that, I would say that I think the idea there is to try and show what is fundamentally religious ideology without making it about religion. And I think the reason it's often a bureaucracy is because bureaucracies don't work or are are inefficient. Like everyone knows they're inefficient, and so what we wind up with is like, oh, the reason that life or fate or the afterlife is so messy and problematic, or morality in general is so messy and problematic, is because it's a bureaucracy. It's run by a bunch of stuck-up bureaucrats who have no idea how to make things work, right? I'm thinking of the song from Futurama where Hermes Conrad, who's the Planet Express's bureaucrat, sings the whole song, right? Like, at the central bureaucracy. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, when push comes to love, you gotta do what you love, even if it's not a good idea. Oh, it's such a good episode.
I gotta go back and rewatch Futurama. I love that show.
Yeah, that episode in particular. I think Futurama, I mean, people rave about The Simpsons, but I think Futurama is a way smarter show.
Oh, same here.
And funny.
If I had to pick between the two, Futurama, for me, takes the cake. Anyway, those were the things for me in the movie that didn't work. That worked. I'll get into quickly in the things that didn't work. Specifically, I really thought the love story, I just didn't buy it. I don't care if I met Emily Blunt and had a random makeout encounter in a washroom and I was still obsessing over
that wouldn't change
3
my
years
life.
Later. No, exactly.
And
even
also
if it was
obsessing
Emily
over
Blunt.
a girl after making out with her in a washroom after you lost an election, to me, that screams of like rebound. Like you just found a very, 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 very attractive woman. In a washroom after losing an election, and she wanted to make out with you, and so you were like, hell yeah, I'm feeling vulnerable and low, I'll make out with a very, 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 in case you haven't noticed, I think Emily Blunt is a very attractive woman, also a magnificent actor, or rather, maybe I'll rephrase that, she is a magnificent actor who also happens to be very, 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 very attractive. Just to make sure we know what order that I'm prioritizing things.
Right.
I think what you wind up with there is this is not a romantical attraction. This is a dude who's feeling, two individuals, in fact, who are feeling down on their luck at that particular moment, who wind up making out with each other. That just screams rebound, minus the fact that she just crashed a wedding.
Yeah.
Right? And so she may have alcohol in her system, so that makes you more, or I guess makes you less inhibited, right? It makes you more open to these kinds of things. So, like, I don't know. To me, that's actually one of the problems that I fixed in my pitch. I think I have a really good pitch this time around.
Yeah, same with me, because that was definitely a thing that, to me, honestly, that was really the thing that just destroyed the movie for me. Because first of all, he's obsessing over her 3 years later.
3 years! That's just sad.
That's exactly it. I was thinking about this because his best friend Charlie seems way too accepting of this.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, if this was Andrew, because he's like, I've known Charlie since I was a kid. Well, we've known each other since we were kids. And I thought, okay, well, if this happened to Andrew and he met someone who in a bathroom and had an encounter like this, and 3 years later was still obsessing over her, I'd be like, dude, I'm sorry, you gotta move on.
Yeah,
like,
there's a
there
philosopher.
Are other people out there.
There's a philosopher / psychologist named Fromm. I can't remember his first name off the top of my head. His name is
Eric
Fromm. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And he says he talks about this idea called sentimental love as opposed to like actualized love, where like you're not really in love with another person to the point of like trying to become a better you or become a better lover, not like sexual lover, but become a better person in how you love by discovering who you are and who they are in a relationship. You're just simply, you're simply trying to love something for the sake of love. And he calls this sentimental love. This, to me, this is the kind of like almost sublime love that they talk about, sublime in the romantic sense, capital R romantic, where it's just like, oh, it's so heartbreaking, but it's like, yeah, but, and I understand empathy, like when you read a poem and you read about some guy who's just pining after a woman who doesn't, unrequited love, and that's fine to have unrequited love, but if you're just gonna like mope about it, like ad nauseum, like without end, then like it's not love anymore. It's not even unrequited love. It's just sentimental love in Fromm's terms. Yeah. And exactly. And I think you're right. I think it's not, I think the movie frames it like we're supposed to be like, wow, he like really waited for her because of, we know as an audience that it's about fate, but he doesn't know about that. Right. Like, it hasn't been 3 years. We know about her. It's a couple months after he first meets her and he meets her again. He doesn't know about fate then. But if it's been a couple months, I would still even be like,
that's right.
I'd still even be like, okay, that's a little bit pathetic. Like it was a one night thing. And I think if it was any other reasonable, healthy human being, I'd be like, what an amazing moment you shared.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
What an amazing moment you shared. But to seek out that person, I don't know. And like 3 years later, it's like he learns that he's not supposed to be with her, and he doesn't really know what the bureau is at that point. He just says don't. They just say don't, and now he's like pining after her. Rides the same bus for 3 years every morning. Like, other than being a political figure, get a fucking hobby.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that was exactly the way I felt about it. And to be honest, that's really it. That's the thing that really just destroyed the movie for me, was that I just could not buy the love story. And I also have to admit, anytime there's this like concept of like, oh, you're soulmates or you're meant to be together, I have a violent gag reflex because I think that is the stupidest concept ever invented, or one of the stupidest concepts ever invented. I would put Nazism as a more stupid concept, but I think
priorities.
This idea,
exactly. This whole episode of CineCasters is us just being like, this is fucking stupid. Not the most stupid, but it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Making sure we prioritize how we feel.
Yeah. But in this case, it's like, I don't know. It's just, I think it's, there's a great song. Do you know Tim Minchin?
Yes. Oh my God. Okay, if I didn't have you, then somebody else would do.
Yes.
I'm going to throw this out there.
How I feel.
I'm going to throw this out there. That I actually was in a relationship with a young woman for 3.5 years. I really, really, really like, it was the longest relationship I've ever been in. It was definitely the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. And that was, how, like, sometimes you get like, oh, what's our song gonna be? Like, you know what I mean? Like that was our song. I was like, this is our song if I didn't have you. Because it's so funny. And we were those kind of people together.
Right.
If I didn't have you, then somebody else would do. Oh, I fucking love Tim Minchin.
Exactly. Well, that's the way I feel. There is not one person who's like your perfect fit. It's just, I'm not going to get into it. I think it's. Are you
sure? Are you sure you're not a Disney villain? Just throwing that out there. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I definitely want to be a Disney villain. I have played one on stage before.
Oh, there you go.
So I definitely want to be a Disney villain.
What Disney villain would I be? I'll think about that.
I played Hades. I don't know if I would be Hades, but yeah,
that'd be a fun
Hades.
One to do. Yeah,
but if I had my pick of like any, well, Disney villain is a different story. But if I had my pick of any villain, we all know that I'd be the Grinch.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Disney villains are different. Hades was fun to play, but I think LeFou would also be super fun to play.
Which one's LeFou?
He's like Gaston's little sidekick from...
Yeah.
Oh, LeFou, I'm afraid I've been thinking, a dangerous pastime I know. Like, I can do that whole song back and forth. Like, but yeah. No one fights like Gaston. No one bites like
I actually don't. I just realized I don't know as many words as that as I thought I did.
Anyway, that's LeFou. He'd be fun to do, but
yeah, I think so too. Anyway, those are my downs of Adjustment Bureau. That's it.
Yeah. But there's a big down. I'm going to start with my goods, which are not a lot. But there is a scene where they're on the bus and he like spills his coffee and like they're like spilling coffee on each other like haphazardly, and I was like, oh man. And before that we get set up where like one of the bureau guys is like or officials, whatever they're called, is like talking to Harry, Anthony Mackie's character. Anthony Mackie? Mackenzie? Anthony?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I know who you mean though.
He's talking to Harry, the Falcon.
Yeah.
And he's talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, he has to spill coffee on himself." And so we like realize there's something about the coffee, and then we watch as Emily Blunt, Elise, and Matt Damon, David Norris, like spill coffee on each other in a haphazardly kind of way. And I was like, because we don't know what the point of the spilled coffee is, I was sort of like, oh shit, like spilling drink on each other has never been so sexually intense. Like I was like, ooh, like coffee. And I'm being half facetious, but I was sort of invested. I was like, wow, they are really focusing on this coffee and her skirt and whatnot. And I was like, that's cool, whatever. I was invested. The door thing where they like run through the doors. I don't care who you are. That is so cool.
It's cool.
It's so cool, like from a cinematic standpoint and from a superpower standpoint. I don't care about anything else about in terms of like fate or the plan or the bureau. Give me one of those hats and I can make a whole movie that's way better than this one just about that door power.
Right. If you want to watch a really cool that sequence reminded me of the Radiohead music video for Daydreaming, where he's just walking through doors.
Yeah. But imagine a whole movie where that's the central theme of the movie is like, I mean, it's basically, there's a terrible movie called, is it Push? It's not terrible, but or Teleport? Jumpers.
Jumper. Oh yeah, with the guy from Star Wars.
Yeah, sure.
He played Anakin, I think.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hayden.
Yeah, that guy.
Christensen? Yeah.
I
was about to say Hayden Panettiere, but that's not a guy. Anyway, but yeah, like that opening door, like I think you could do something cool with that, because one of the things that I thought was really weird is like they're always like walking through doors, but everywhere they go is like somewhere in New York. There's a whole world of doors out there.
Well,
guys.
My mind went, they just couldn't afford to send an entire crew around the world. So they're like, we'll just stay in New York.
You don't even need an entire crew. You could literally use a soundstage, because like not every door leads outside. Lots of doors lead inside.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
Like, I don't know. It just seemed to me like, I get that you're trying to be like, this is set in New York, and it's, here's the Ellis Island, the Statue of Liberty, but it's like, yeah, but why?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole water, they can't like work off water. That was
I didn't get that either.
Stupid. Yeah. I don't understand how there can be earlier versions of the chairman's plan.
Right, yeah.
Like, it almost seems like this whole idea is that they're trying to reconcile multiple worlds interpretation of timelines with fate, with like a Christian idea of fatalism, or Judeo-Christian idea of fatalism, or almost like Oedipus. Almost that kind of fate. Not the Oedipus complex in Freudian terms, but the Oedipus in terms of like how he tries to go against fate and winds up doing the exact same thing that he was fated to do.
Yeah, or like
anyway.
a Macbeth kind of a thing.
Yeah. And I don't know. So, and then here we get to my big ones, my big real problems that I had with this. And they're not even problems so much as I actually think this movie is almost genius in what it does. Okay?
Okay.
Everyone who's part of the Bureau, okay, is a white male. And they control everything.
Oh, snap.
I know. And to me, I was watching this and I was like, because I was watching the one scene where Thompson shows up. Thompson's the same guy that played Terrence from Yes Man, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
So he's in
he showed up again.
Showed up 2 movies in a row. I mean, that was bound to happen eventually, but he starts talking and he's like, "Oh, you remember the Dark Ages? Or we like led you up to the Romans, and then we like laid back, and the chairman said we would take the training wheels off, and everything that he talks about is like Eurocentric, anthropocentric, pterocentric, and androcentric, right? And so that's what made me think. I was like, oh, this movie is, and then I was like, oh my god, is this movie actually genius? Like, what if you read this movie as a commentary on the patriarchy?
Oh, that's I like that. Now that's
like
interesting.
even it's not like the president, right? It's not the president of the company, not the CEO, not the director, but chairman.
Yeah,
chairman, right? You could easily just be like, oh, why not call it the director? And then have it be ambiguous as to whether it's male or female. And you'll note the only black person is Anthony Mackie in the entire movie, really. But I think it's Anthony Mackie. I'm sorry if I keep fucking that up. But Harry is the only black person, and he's low man on the totem pole. He's like the token black guy who works for the Bureau. This movie is about the patriarchy, a white-centric... I don't know. That's just my reading of it. I was like, what if you read it as like a feminist discourse, and then David, Harry, and Elise are basically giving a big fuck you to the patriarchy? I don't think that's what this movie's about. But I do think that you could definitely write a feminist discourse on that. That's so interesting.
I personally don't think that was their intention.
No.
But I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I would love... I really wish that were the case.
Yeah, I mean, if you remade this movie where Elise was the main character, and it was about this sort of maybe not outright patriarchy, like maybe not making it so obvious, but like literally making it about a woman trying to change the plans of an all male run, like fatalistic bureaucracy, then I don't know. I think already that's a great pitch.
It's far more interesting.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is I want to like this movie because it deals with fate and sort of like changing time and like breaking the mold, and it makes you want to like feel for David and Elise and how they're like fighting back against what is, quote unquote, supposed to be. But at the end of the movie, after all that and the credits start to roll, the only thing I get is, what the fuck is the message of this movie? What is this movie about? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know what happens. Oftentimes we talk about the difference between plot and story. I know what happens in this movie. I know what the events are. I know the timeline. But what is this movie about? What is it trying to say?
Yeah, exactly.
I got nothing. I went into writing my pitch for this, and I was like, I don't even know what the central crux of this movie was. Usually I like to pinpoint a single theme and then work on that. Like last week we talked about how Yes Man was problematic, but I was like, okay, I think religious dogmatism is where I want to go with this one. Or the other option could have been, let's lean heavily into risk reward in terms of relationships or depression. And I had nothing for this one. I was like, I really don't know what this movie is about. So when I wrote my pitch, I just kind of wrote a good story, a better story, at least I think so.
Interesting. That's so interesting. Yeah, because I had a similar problem with mine. Because one of the things that I always find really interesting in movies like this, so I've been watching Westworld a lot recently, and it deals with very, very similar themes.
Yeah.
But the reason I like Westworld is because it's willing to go to the place of really making you ask yourself, like, how much choice do I actually have? How much choice? Because I just think that's a far more interesting. I think it's just thematically far more interesting. A, B, I actually think it's relevant. I think one of the things, whatever sort of postmodern era we're in, one of the questions that's being raised, I think one of the notions that we've been shooting down correctly is this notion of free agents and autonomy and free will has come into question. And I actually am personally, as we've talked a little bit about it on the show before, I am a bit of a determinist.
I'm 100% determinist or indeterminist. I think...
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
I think that you are what you are, and that's 100% of what makes up your decisions. There's no such thing as free will. It doesn't work that way. It's just an illusion of free will. Mm-hmm. I do, however, think that people who take I just want to make a distinction. People who say like, well, if nothing matters, then I can do whatever I want, and I think that then morality comes into play, and morality is a different question from free will. The illusion of free will is just as important as the fact that we don't have free will.
Yes.
It still means that what you do matters. You didn't really choose it. It's kind of hard to explain.
No, because I feel similarly, and it is a difficult thing to explain. But because you have the illusion of having choice, that does not necessarily negate the value or consequences of those choices.
Yeah,
and I personally do believe there is a degree to which we can, either through reflection or by some tiny degree of conscious effort, maybe actually have a little bit more control over our actions. But then again, because I was having a conversation with someone about this, and they said, well, but the only way you could get that is based on other prior experiences you had that would have been determined by something else.
Exactly. So then you wind up getting into a very complex sort of digression into causality, because if you change the way you think, so I'm thinking of cognitive behavior therapy, for example. So if you change the way you think, then you're changing, your agency, I guess. But then the only reason you're changing the way you think, the only reason you start going through cognitive behavior therapy is because of certain things that led you to that point anyway. So
exactly,
not to be fatalistic about it, but I do think that causality and determinism are directly linked. I don't think we have free will. I don't think there's any such thing as free will. And so I hear what you're saying about Westworld when you bring that up, because this movie almost asks those questions and then doesn't at all. I think this movie wants to be way smarter than it actually is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and part of where I was going with that is I feel like there's with some movies, at least with a movie like this, where I think it falls flat is where it just wants to say we have free will and we should embrace it. And part of my reaction to the end of the movie was, well, I just disagree with that. I just don't think we do.
That's great, and you're entitled to your opinion, but you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I like Westworld as a show, because it leaves you really asking the hard questions, I think.
I think good media of any kind, a good text, whether that's visual or written or art or music or whatever, should leave you asking some kind of question or leave you with some kind of emotion.
Exactly.
Really powerful art, I think, should do that. And this movie doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So should we get into pitches?
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is that just on the topic of free will, I do think that no, shit, I lost my train of thought. Never mind. Let's go into pitches.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do we draw straws, or who goes first?
I'm just going to jump into mine.
Do it.
Yeah. So I did a classic. I did a classic thing where you were always, that I learned from you, which was change your character and see what happens. So for me, the coolest character in this for me was Harry.
Yes.
I actually think Harry is the coolest character. So in mine, they're not angels or whatever. They're just a bureau. And it's not an allegory for Christianity or Judeo-Christian whatever, because that's dumb. I also wanted to do more with Elise. I just remembered my train of thought, not about free will. Elise is the same problem that we had with Allison in the last episode.
Yes.
She is basically a goal for David to achieve. She's the reason that plot happens. She's the MacGuffin in a lot of points.
Yeah.
We know that she has dreams and whatnot, but those dreams are used as a means to manipulate David. They're not her dreams so much as a plot point for David. And I found that really aggravating. I don't think I necessarily fixed that. I think I think if I went into my pitch deeper, I definitely could. I'm gonna try. My pitch is super fucking long. I apologize, but here we go.
That's okay.
Here we go. I needed to do some stuff. So most of the movie winds up being the same way. So the movie starts out the same. We see David Norris is rising to power politically, and all that same kind of shit happens. We're seeing all this from the perspective of Anthony Mackie's character, Harry, who appears to be part of the campaign team. So he's helping David campaign. David loses the election for Senate in New York State, and Harry follows him, and we see he spills some water on David's shirt, like physically bumps into him. He spills some water on David's shirt, and then David winds up going to the washroom where he changes his shirt. Like, he gets a different shirt, and he starts practicing. He's going to practice his speech, so everyone's leaving him alone. There he meets Elise. Elise is not hiding in the men's room from security, but she's hiding from the other wedding goers. And she's like, I'm hiding in here because they would never think to look for me. And he's like, oh, that's neat, whatever. So after he changes his shirt, he winds up like sitting and talking with her. And instead of practicing his speech like he was supposed to be doing, they just sit and talk for like an hour and a half, just talking about everything. And we see like the more they talk, the more they like start to get along. And at the end of the speech, he says, at the end of the talk, he says, I have to go give a speech now, but I would really like to come back here. Like, if you're interested, would you wait for me? And she says, yes. She's like, yes, I will wait. Maybe not in the bathroom, but I'll wait for you. And so the two of them leave the bathroom together, and she's like waiting, for him just a little bit a ways. Well, he goes up on stage, but because he hasn't given his speech, like he hasn't practiced the speech, he winds up giving that impromptu speech. Mm-hmm. The one where he talks about being real. Right? So, as he's going up on stage, we see Harry is greeted by two other dudes in suits, and they all start congratulating each other. They're like, wow, great job. We really worked hard on this. You should feel, really, really excellent. You should feel really good about how hard we worked because it was a complete success. Which, for the audience, would be strange because David lost. And so, as far as we know, the way it's shot, Harry's part of the campaign team.
Right. Okay.
So David gives his speech, and then Harry is told while they're celebrating that they need to escort the woman, Elise, out so that David does not meet her again. And Harry goes, okay, but I thought, that was what was supposed to happen. They were supposed to meet. And they're like, okay, yeah, they were supposed to meet to get to this point, but now we need to get rid of her. They can't be together anymore. And so Harry gets into an argument with his bosses, and he winds up wandering off, really upset. David returns to find Elise is gone. He's disappointed, and he, quote-unquote, accidentally bumps into Harry, who spills his drink on this time, David spills his drink on Harry, right?
Okay.
Which is accidental, because Harry just happens to be the person he bumps into. He doesn't seem to recognize Harry at all, which is more of a clue for the audience that Harry doesn't work for the campaign.
Oh, got it.
So all of this is played like Harry works for the campaign.
Right. I get it.
Yeah.
Right, but then David doesn't
recognize him, and Harry was being they were congratulating each other, and so different things.
Right.
So David doesn't recognize him.
I
and
see.
He says, how about I offer to get you your shirt dry cleaned? And instead Harry says, hey, don't worry about the shirt. You look like you've had a rough day. Why don't we go and get a beer? And so David says, you know what? That sounds really good right about now. And the two of them leave. They sit down at a bar and they start talking. And they both are basically like, man, we had a really off day. David starts by saying his day was shitty, not because he lost the election. He felt like that made him poopy, but he feels like shit because the truest thing that he had a long time, like the speech he gave was really real. And the reason he felt that real about politics was because of this woman that he met, Elise. And we see this is affecting Harry. Because Harry is the reason that Elise wasn't there. So Harry then goes, I'm having kind of a shitty day too, because I was working really, really hard on a project in my job, and it all worked out, but it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to. And somebody might have gotten off worse rather than better, and that's not really what I intended. And so David says, if you're not happy with the work, you can always quit. And Harry sort of smiles and goes, he's like, that's not really that kind of job. And so David
Okay,
says, hey, if you don't have any other choice, if you need to stay in your job to make ends meet, I get it. But you have to make it a job where the projects you do work for you and they are for what matters. Because that's what David is all about in his politics. He's all about, you got to do what matters to you. So a few months later, we see David getting ready for work, and there's a different dude in a hat following him. We see Harry, as he runs for the bus, we see Harry on a park bench, and just sitting on a park bench outside where the bus is. We see the other dude in the hat is so focused on David, Harry points at this dude in the hat, and he knocks this dude into another person, and he spills coffee on this official, on this dude in the hat, causing him to lose focus, and David winds up getting on the bus, where he meets Elise, and he accidentally spills coffee on her.
So the idea is Harry actually triggered that intentionally this time. Okay, got it.
So the office scene where David finds out the bureau plays the same, but when he asks about Harry, all the officials are like, Harry isn't working on this case anymore. Also, how do you know about Harry? So they all kind of like look around like, how do you know about Harry? He's not working this case anymore. So because David's like, I want to talk to Harry, right? Or whatever. I don't know if Harry actually revealed himself before, but whatever. Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. Let's say no. Let's say Harry didn't reveal himself. That makes more sense. But they did have that whole conversation, but David didn't know Harry was working for the Bureau. So this whole thing happens, and yeah, cool. They wind up going into David's wallet, pulling out the number and burning it, just the same way.
Got it.
Right? Actually, no, not burning it. Pulling it out of his wallet, and then one guy pockets it. Right? He pockets it. So 3 years later, David is taking the bus. He's trying to, he's just taking the bus. Someone sits down next to him, and he looks over, and it's Harry.
Okay.
And Harry tells him, David says, oh, Harry, I haven't seen you in a long time. Like, what are you doing? And Harry goes, I work for the Bureau, the people that you met before. Or at least I did until you gave me the advice to quit. And David's sort of like, well, I don't really want to deal with the Bureau anymore. I haven't told anyone I've been good. And Harry goes, I quit now. And he goes, David, he's sort of ignoring David. He goes, David, why do you take the same bus every day? Why do you take this bus every day for 3 years? And David says, this is the bus where I met Elise, and I'm hoping to meet her again. And David and Harry goes, okay. He reaches into his coat pocket and he pulls out the business card with Elise's number on it from 3 years ago. And he hands it to David. Harry hands it to David. So David calls Elise and they meet up, and it's all sunshine and daisies, and the Bureau shows up, and the hospital thing happens, and they reveal that they're grooming David to be president for like a new era, and that there's a chairman, and the chairman's plan is that Elise and David are not to be together, and that free will is a thing, but the chairman does what the chairman wants. Like free will is what happens. We have free will, at least in this movie, but the chairman has a plan, and that plan is what happens.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so Elise will get hurt because the chairman doesn't want that, so he's basically going to try and like use Elise as a means to keep David on plan.
Got it.
Basically, he says, like, if you do this, you're going to give up on your dream of being a politician and and you will eventually become the president. And she's going to give up on her dream of becoming a professional dancer. Instead, she will teach dance to 6-year-olds, and you'll wind up giving on politics and work as a small-time lawyer. So David agrees. He says, I'll tell no one about the risks. Otherwise, I know that he knows he'll get reset. We don't know what that means, but he'll get reset.
Right.
So more time passes. David sees Elise in the paper, and she's like becoming a star. She's not getting married because that's dumb. She's become a star, and he realizes the only thing he wants more than anything is to be with her. He thinks about her all the time they spent together. I know I brushed over that because it's all in the movie already, but all the time they spent together, he really wants to be with her, and likes. He's like, I I could be president, but what I really want to do is I really like being with this one person. I think I want to do that more. And so he tries to find a way to track down Harry, but it turns out that Harry has been following David this whole time, waiting for a sign. Because he's been waiting for a sign that David wants to maybe do something off plan.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so he says, I've been waiting for you because I want to throw the whole plan off. I'm going to throw the whole thing off so that the plan no longer works and we all just do what we want rather than what the chairman wants, because that's the point of free will.
Right. Oh, okay. Oh, that's
so using the hat doors, awesome power shit, they like go through the thing, and Harry winds up meeting Elise in another bathroom, and David winds up meeting Elise in another. Yeah. And Harry's like, cool, I'll stop the bureau dudes from showing up. So he goes outside, and maybe we can have like a quick, I don't know, awesome fight scene like through the doors. That'd be cool.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I don't know. And then meanwhile, like while that's happening, you could sort of do an Inception style cuts. While in the bathroom, we have Elise and David arguing / talking. And outside the door, like every so often, Harry keeps popping back in through the door. Being like, hurry it up, and then popping back out through the door into a different place.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think that'd be really cool.
You know, sorry, just a quick introduction. A movie that does something like that, very interestingly, is Being John Malkovich at the very end.
Okay.
There's a sequence like that where they're like going through doors. Anyway, sorry, that's just what came to mind.
But I think that would just be a really like not a whole fight scene kind of thing, but an action sequence. Anyway. So David is like trying to explain what the heck is happening. He's basically like, you know, this is why I left. This is why I left you at the hospital. And she's like, I don't believe you. Like, what? And then finally, like, he reveals, like, look, there's a bureau. The reason this guy keeps popping through the door, and like Harry pops through the door, and she like looks through the door, and it's like a different place. And she's like, what the heck? And he's like, there's this bureau. But in doing so, and Harry realizes this. In doing so, he gives the Bureau authorization to do a full reset. Because he revealed the plan to her.
Right.
So Harry's like, I know what they're going to do. You revealed it. That wasn't part of the plan. And David was like, I was improvising. Like, I have free will. Right. I was improvising. Like, I was just making it up. And Harry's like, well, I mean, it wasn't part of our plan, but it was part of, you know, the whole point of our plan was to get off plan. So improvising works. Whatever. Sorry. They then decide to go to the central bureaucracy. I stole that from Futurama, but they go into the world, whatever, and they make their way up this building, and they get to the chairman's office, and it's empty. There is no chairman. There never was. There was only hilarious. A plan. And people believed, the people in the bureau believed, they're not angels, they're just people with magic powers.
Right.
They believed that there was a plan, that this was the way that things were supposed to be. Even though there was no one telling them that's how the plan was, that the plan was correct. There was,
interesting.
Yeah, it was just, that's what they believed. So, you know, they were following their dreams because, you know, that's what their dreams were. But Harry says, you know, there is no plan. The dreams weren't part of the plan. Those were just things that you wanted to have. Those were just the dreams that you had. And it's okay if those dreams, there's nothing wrong with having smaller dreams. You know what I mean? Like, just because you're a president and a famous dancer, it's okay to have smaller dreams. It's okay to meet someone and change your dreams as long as that's what you want, not part of somebody else's plan.
Interesting.
So then the Bureau goons come in, and Harry panics because he knows the Bureau will try to take his hat and try to do a full reset. So he takes his hat off, jams it on David's head, and then basically says, things are going to be foggy and confusing for a while, but wait for my signal and you will know what to do. Most importantly, you need to remember, or you never forget, that if Elise is the thing you want most in the world, then you need to focus on her, if that's your dream, if that's what you want, that's what you got to focus on. And then all of a sudden the screen goes black or white or whatever. And we're experiencing the night where David lost the first election for New York Senator. Again.
Oh, interesting.
So he's in the bathroom, and he pulls off, he excuses himself, goes to the bathroom, pulls off the hat, and he's like groggy and confused, and he's blinking, and he's like strangely looking at himself in the mirror, and then Elise comes out of the bathroom stall, and he like looks at her and looks in the mirror, and then he goes like, oh shit. Right? Like we see this realization on his face. And then Harry they wind up talking, and he tries to convince her to leave. He's like, you should leave with me. We can go and talk. But of course, he remembers and she doesn't. So at this point in time, they haven't even had their hour and a half long conversation. She's just in the bathroom stall, and he's like, we should go. And she's like, no, I don't want to leave the bathroom. I'm hiding out here. And he goes, what are you hiding from? Like, what's going on? And he knows it's a wedding. And she goes, well, I'm hiding from a wedding. And he's like, yeah. And she goes, well, the reason I'm hiding is because the wedding is mine.
Oh.
And I don't want to get married. I want to be a dancer. Like, he's just not the right one for me. And so David sort of has this moment of like, oh shit, maybe that is her dream, not to be a dancer and not get married. And then Harry slams through the door of the bathroom, and we get this awesome doorway chase scene where Harry gets his hat back, and they're like going through all these doors, and it's fucking awesome. It's implied that the hat gave David his memories back, by the way.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they finally managed to get away, and then many, many years later, David is on his way to catch the bus from his apartment. Right? He's wearing a suit and tie and whatnot, and he spills coffee on his shirt, and he goes, ah, shit. And he looks around, and we see Harry is sitting on a park bench, and he's pointing at David, implying that he just spilled the coffee, right? And we see the two of them look at each other and sort of smile at each other. And David turns around, and he starts walking back to his place because there's coffee all over his shirt, as if he's going to change his shirt. And he opens his phone, and he calls in sick. And as he hangs up, he opens the door to his apartment, and he sits there and he tells Elise, he's like, Elise is there, and he says, hey man, I took the day off to spend with you. I called in sick. And that's the end of the movie.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. One question that I have.
Yeah. I mean, it was a bit messy in there, but yeah.
If it was her wedding, why was she not in a wedding dress? Unless she did one of those, like, just going in for an official thing and doesn't actually have a...
I did think about that, and I thought, wouldn't it be like the reason, like, I think it's like, it was implied that it's like before the wedding, and that her wedding dress is like hanging up in the stall, and we just never saw it. And so she'd like taken it off and changed into like other clothes, like she's not in a dress, she's just in like regular clothes. And then when you do the reveal, we can watch her like open the stall, and like pan in and see this wedding dress hanging up.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. I think that would be visually appealing. Another way is she's in a hotel, so I don't know. There's a couple ways you could go about doing that, but I just thought the whole idea of like David coming to grips with like, this is what he's wanted. He wants it, but maybe she didn't or doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
To sort of give her some agency. Like, I just thought the idea of like her marrying someone else, even though it's not part of the plan, and I just straight up said like, fuck the plan. Yeah. So I leaned into the idea of free will because I think that's ultimately what the movie is trying to tell us. Because at the end, when the chairman rewrote the plan because it was all a test. Everything is a test. Yeah. The chairman's always testing us, and I was like, no. Yeah. No. So instead, and I also really wanted to push for the idea that like, just because your dreams are like, when you start out young, you have big dreams about the world, becoming president or being a professional dancer, doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with smaller dreams. Dreams of teaching 6-year-olds how to dance. If you're engaged by young children and teaching them something that, conveying something you love to them in the hopes that they'll love it and pick it up, or working as a small-time lawyer, for in a small town or even in New York, but if that's what you want to do, for a small firm, if that's what you want to do, if that's what your dream is, I don't think that's necessarily settling, particularly as Harry says in my pitch, particularly if your dream is to be with another person.
Yeah, exactly.
Dreams can change, and I think that's what's okay. Is like, and the whole idea of improvising and planning, I wanted to play with a little bit of that too, where it's like, Harry's not. He's like, that wasn't part of the plan, David, and David's like, the whole plan went to shit the moment you decided you wanted to throw the plan off. Like everything is about change. It's okay to change your mind. There's nothing goes according to plan anyway, and sometimes while you're planning for to become president of the United States, and you've been working so hard at that, you don't realize that somewhere along the way you don't want that anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah. I like that take.
I don't think it's the smartest pitch I've ever done, but I do think it's pretty heartwarming.
Yeah. Can I get into mine?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm stoked.
Mine, I told you earlier today, this is gonna be one of the weirdest pitches I ever
Yeah, you
wrote.
said that. You were like, this is gonna be like Brazil, but fucked.
Picture something done kind of in the style of Brazil. The first half of it's kind of the same movie, and then it goes completely off book.
Yeah, you're talking about Brazil the movie, not Brazil the country.
I'm talking about Brazil the movie, the Terry Gilliam movie from the 80s. Yeah, not the country, the movie.
I don't know. I've never been to Brazil, so I don't know how fucked it is.
I haven't either.
But like the movie,
have you seen the movie?
No, I've not.
You have to see the movie.
Okay.
It's weird. It's beautiful. So here we go. So mine starts off. There's a guy in an office. We don't see his face, but he's watching a whole bunch of TVs, and it's just like this massive wall of TV screens, and it zooms in on one of them. And on one of them we see David Norris. He's giving this. He's running for senator, and he's giving this speech on election night. And actually, it's before he's about to give the speech, and he's talking to his advisor. And I just switched Charlie to Charlotte. I just felt like we needed to have some more female characters, so I switched Charlie to Charlotte. And he's talking about how he feels disingenuous doing this. He's like, I feel like, I mean, I'm excited because I feel like we're about to win, but I feel disingenuous because of all the way we've gone about this. And he's going, if I win, I hope, I really want to change that. And she goes, after tonight, when you win, you will be able to run it the way you want. Anyway, in my version too, we see Harry earlier on, but we don't know who he is. We just know he's there, and he's paying a lot of attention, and he's got a fedora.
It's a trilby, I think.
Oh, right. We've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
Yes. Whatever it's called. That's what he's wearing. Anyway, that night, he loses, and as he's giving the speech, he gives the same speech, and he talks about how he's like, no, I was told to say all this, and basically as he gives the speech more or less the same way, but we see him walk off stage, and as he's walking off stage, he goes, you know what, I don't actually know if I really wanted this. I thought I wanted this, but I feel like I'm being dishonest. So this is me throwing in the towel. And as it turns out, he ends up becoming all the more popular for it. Anyway, flash forward to 3 years later, and David is running his own firm with Charlotte. They're working together more or less the same way. And in this version, he bumps into Elise the first time on his way to work.
So there's nothing in the bathroom?
There's nothing in the bathroom in mine. This is the first time that he's met her. And but he feels like there's a connection with this person. He really likes he really likes who she is and would like to see her again. So he's like, hey, I really like talking to you. Can I have your number? So he gets her phone number, and he makes his way to the office. And when he gets to and in my version, there is that exchange before where Harry is told by Richardson, like, oh, he can't meet her. Or we don't know that, but it's some arbitrary thing that he has to make happen. Yeah. And in my version, Harry is just, we get the sense that he is massively incompetent. So he just fucks up. And David's able to go to the office, and he gets to the office, and it's more or less the same way, and he walks in the room, and there are all these people basically performing this operation. And they go, oh shit, Harry must have. And I actually want to cast Taika Waititi in my version as one of the guys. Like, oh shit, he's not supposed to be here. What? I don't know what I have with like Kiwi characters.
I think we just really love Kiwis, which is great because Kiwis are great, and I just really want to go back and live there forever. So it is the land of magic. I just want to move there.
Clearly, they managed to beat COVID somehow. So
that's because Jacinda is an actual Disney princess.
Actually, you know what? She should just become president of planet Earth.
Yes, please.
I think we'd all be better for it. Anyway,
I love Canada, but also New Zealand.
Canada's great. I love Canada too. New Zealand. I've never been to New Zealand. I wish I could go someday.
Oh, we should just go.
We should go. Anyway, in my version, Taika Waititi's there, and he's going, Harry must have fucked up. He's not supposed to be here. Anyway, so they grab David, and they're like, I guess we're just going to have to, like, they're trying to figure out what to do, and they're like, all right, we're just going to have to reset everything. We're just going to have to do a full reset on the day.
Yeah.
So basically, it cuts to David's suddenly doing his routine again. And we see the day as it was supposed to go the first time. And he just like misses Elise, and he never meets Elise in this version. He goes about his life in this version, and we see a brief passage of time, and we see he has these flashes of these like guys in his office. He has memory. He thinks he's imagining this thing, but we the audience know it's a memory that he has. But to him, he's like having a psychotic episode, and he's like, what's going on? And he as time goes on, he starts going crazier, and he talks to Charlotte saying, I don't feel like I'm in control. I feel like I don't know what's going on, but I just feel like something is off. Anyway, one day, it's the last day. He's basically like, I've had enough of this. I need to just quit. I need to go and buy a cottage and just take some time to decompress. Anyway, this is his last day going into the office, and just as he's about to make his way to the office, he changes his routine from normal and ends up bumping into Elise this time.
Ooh.
And they have a conversation, and they connect. And Harry the whole time he just messed up again.
Yeah.
And he goes, and so then we follow Harry this time, and we follow him, and he basically goes to an office, and I'm picturing something kind of like at the beginning of Burn After Reading, where this basically, I don't know if you've seen Burn After Reading, but there's all these things happening, but the CIA is watching everything, but the whole joke of the movie is the CIA is massively incompetent and has no grip.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this, is there's this bureau, but they can't actually get a grip on things. So Harry goes in and he explains, he's like, I'm sorry, Richardson, I messed up again. Like, I know these two weren't supposed to meet. I'm sorry. Like, are we going to have to do another reset? And Richardson goes like, we can't. We've messed this guy up already doing a reset. It's already like giving us a hard enough time. I don't want to have to like reset everything, because that's going to be bad. We don't want to do that. We're going to have to just let this play out. So he goes, okay, tell you what, let me handle this. So he goes, and Richardson finds David. Like David's maybe going, like getting ready to go on a date, and he bumps into Richardson randomly. And Richardson says, like, Richardson is played like he recognizes him as the senator. It's like, hey, sorry to hear about that. And he's like, so I happened to see you earlier the other day, and you bumped shoulders with someone, and I know she's really pretty, but she's bad news. And then he just walks away, and David's like, what?
I kind of like this comedic spin on the bureau, like them like trying to run things from behind the shadows, but they're actually like terrible.
Yeah, well, exactly. So basically, where I'm trying to go thematically, it's basically questioning this whole idea of like a higher power and like what that higher power's motives would be. And this idea also that like God as an entity is a competent entity. I just like taking that and going like, what if God is real and just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing? That
sounds probably more accurate to me.
Yeah, exactly. If I was a theist, that's actually probably how I would land. And actually earlier in my life, that was actually kind of where I had landed at one point.
If I was a theist... Anyway, if I was a theist, I would definitely be like, God is either incompetent or not all good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
anyway, go on.
If I would fall in, at one point in my life, I kind of fell in that category. Anyway, so David's basically, we now see that, there's like another passage of time, and David and Elise actually, they get together, and there starts to be a relationship that that forms between the two of them. And what happens over time, though, is we see their relationship actually, like, it starts off really good, but then it hits challenges. And what happens is Elise starts to feel like she's making sacrifices for him. She still wants to be a dancer, and she feels like she's becoming an ornament for him
politically
being reelected. Yeah, so he's actually, by this point, he has decided that he is going to rerun for office based on the advice of her and Charlotte. And we get the sense from the Bureau that that's actually what he was supposed to do from the beginning. Anyway, and through their conversations, we get that he's supposed to run, but they're concerned that Elise is actually going to throw him off because their relationship is now... And it basically comes down to David feels like he's got to make a choice. And basically Richardson, all the Bureau is watching this. So we see a montage happen.
Yeah.
And the way I want to do it is we see it, and then it pulls back, and we've been looking at it on a TV screen.
Oh, so it's like an actual montage?
Yeah. That the Bureau watches, and they're like, oh, fuck.
You know, this
wasn't supposed to happen.
It'd be awesome if somebody had their like finger on the fast forward button.
Yes.
So the montage was actually just fast forwarding through his life.
Exactly. Anyway, so then Richardson's like, oh fuck, what are we gonna do? He's like, okay, you know what? We're just gonna have to level with this guy, okay? And so Richardson, they go and they meet David. And in my version, it's probably Taika Waititi's like, hey man, look, I want to just tell you what's going on.
It's probably Taika Waititi.
Yeah. So he's like, okay, look, so you were not supposed to meet Elise, and here's why. And he basically lays it all out and says, like, if in every scenario that we run, you and Elise always end up fighting, and the only way you stay together is that you give up your dream to become president. And I'm not allowed to authorize that. You're just not allowed to do that. And David's like, but I feel like I want, like, why is this such an issue? And Richardson's like, dude, trust me, you don't want to know. You don't want to know why. You will be very disappointed, but just, like, dude, we're telling you, you will be president of the United States. You are actually one of the only people who actually has this opportunity to self-actualize, has your fate handed to you on a platter, and you're going to turn this down? Like, come on, man. What's wrong with you? And then Richardson says, okay, here's the other thing I got to tell you. And he basically shows him a video of what happens with Elise. And he basically says, okay, if you stay with Elise, this is what happens. And he shows how over time she also ends up giving her dream to stay with him. And he basically says, like, look, do you really want to do that to Elise? And so David thinks about it, and he ends up calling it off with Elise, which also, and Elise is understandably quite distraught by this, because she's like, well, what happened? Like, now you've suddenly, I know we were fighting, but you're just going to call it off. And anyway, we have a bit more time passes again, and David is continuing his political career, and he sees something in the paper one day to show that Elise has actually gone on with her dancing career.
Good for you, Elise.
Anyway, one day Harry shows up. Oh, and David has actually started going somewhat more and more crazy. Even though, because he knows what's going on, he cannot get it out of his head.
He can't
unsee
it.
Exactly. But he's just going with it because he's like, I know I'm going to be president, and that's always what I wanted, and I'm happy with this. And Harry shows up, and basically Harry shows up one day, and he's like, sits down with David, he's like, dude, I'm really sorry about what happened, the whole mess.
It was all my fault.
Everything. This is all my fault. And he's like, and I think... And Harry basically breaks. The way I want to do it is Harry breaks down. He's like, I just hate my job. I thought I was doing something that was good, but now I don't know anymore. And I just want to make it right. So here you go. Here's my hat. He basically puts his hat on the table. He's like, have it. And David's like, what do you mean? And he explains to David,
thanks
like,
for the hat.
Look, exactly. And he's like, look, you can have the hat, and you can go, and maybe we can go and we can answer, and you can have your questions answered. and you'll be able to know everything. And maybe when you have some answers and some clarity, maybe like, I hope maybe this can make it right. So David basically takes the hat and just books it. And basically he just starts passing through a series of doors. But the thing is, it starts off, he's going through like New York, and then maybe he's in like, I don't know, he's like in the Taj Mahal. And then he's in this like laboratory, and there's all of these, there's like, it goes on for an infinity, and there's all these desks with petri dishes on them. And he just starts booking it. And what he starts finding is there are doorways propped up. But they don't lead anywhere. There's just like these doorways through this laboratory. So
like no doors, just doorways, just like ports.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But he runs through one of them. Anyway, eventually he makes his way to the chairman's office. Somehow I realized that I hadn't quite set up this whole idea of the chairman yet, but he's like, somewhere at this point he knows that he's got to like find the chairman.
Yeah.
And he gets to the chairman's office, and he like bursts in the chairman's office, and it's that same image we saw at the beginning with all the screens.
Yeah.
And that guy, but now the guy like freaks out. He's like, "Who are you? Who let you in here? Did you sanitize your hands before you came in here?" and basically the chairman is this guy who is super obsessive and has basically is like a micromanager.
Yeah.
And
OCD.
Super paranoid. And David's like, "Are you the chairman?" And the chairman's like, "Yeah, who's asking?" And then he looks at the TV. He's like, "Oh yeah, you're David. Yeah. Oh, come on in. Just before you come in, could you just maybe wash your hands?" And so then there's a scene like that we like maybe cut to David washing his hands, and then they're sitting down together, and Dave and the chairman's like, "Okay, I sent Harry to meet you. He doesn't actually know it. He thinks that he came off on his own, but I actually kind of manipulated. I don't know if it's really the best thing to do. I feel like it's important to let people know that they chose for themselves, because I was told that's what good leadership is in this book I read. Anyway, sorry. But okay, so you have some questions. Before you have two, he basically does the red pill, blue pill.
Yeah.
Before I answer your question, you can go back to life as it was before. And you can go back to being president, and you can forget everything. And I will do a full reset, and you won't remember any of this. You can have that. Or you can know, but you can't unknow it. And you cannot go back.
Yeah.
And David's like, "I want to know." And so the chairman says, "Okay, you're ready. Okay. Basically, you can't get together with Elise because you cannot be president and be together with Elise, and Saparmurat in Turkmenistan cannot get laid." And David's like, "What?" And the chairman's like, Saparmurat in Turkmenistan, if you become president and get together with Elise, he will not get laid." And David's like, what do you mean? And the chairman's like, "Oh, you thought this whole thing was set up like we were trying to like help you. No. Your universe exists." And he basically just lays it out. And he takes him back through that like with all the little petri dishes, and we see now that they're actually like little cylinders with like entire galaxies, universes in them.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
And the chairman's like, he takes him to one, he's like, "See that's your universe." And David's like, "What do you mean?" And the chairman's like, "I know, it's kind of weird how it works. Like, yeah, it's tiny. You go through the doorway, it changes your size. I don't know how it works either, to be honest, but that's your universe." And this entire lab was set up because we have to find a universe where Saparmurat in Turkmenistan can get laid.
What does that even mean?
And that's a name I found. Saparmurat is apparently it was the name of one of the presidents of Turkmenistan, and I needed a name for someone in Turkmenistan, so I just took it.
Saparmurat in Turkmenistan needs to get laid.
And the chairman's like, "This guy needs to get laid." And then David's like, "Wait, why?" And then the chairman's like, "I don't actually know. I run the lab, and we have to run all of these simulations. We create a bunch of universes, and we have to set up the parameters, and we have to find the correct parameters so that at the beginning of the universe, all of these things happen so that Saparmurat in Turkmenistan can get laid."
Oh my god.
And then the chairman's like, look, I'm just doing my job. I'm sorry. I know, like, you people seem to think I'm God. I don't know where that came from. I don't even know who God is. I don't even know if there is a God. I just have a job. So he's like, I got a family, dude. I work 9 to 5 shift. I'm not here all the time. So basically, David at that moment has a nervous breakdown, and he takes the universe and he smashes it on the ground.
Holy shit.
And then the chairman goes, dude, you just destroyed your universe. you just killed everybody you knew, and
like just gone.
You just destroyed it. And the chairman's like, oh, what are we going to do with you now? Well, I guess they sedate him and they put him in holding. And for the rest of from this point on, have you seen 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Bits and pieces.
Okay, at the very end, at the very end when he's in this sort of weird room, basically David is put in a room like that, and he continues to live. He basically, like 2001, he lives to be an old man, but he's under observation from these other people, like these people in lab coats who are like watching him, and David's like all the while like trying to like be like let me out of here, like I'm not some lab pet, and the people in lab coats are like, sorry dude, we're just doing our job. Like, and plus you escaped, you're not supposed to be here, we don't actually know what
and
to
then
do
you
with
destroyed your own universe. Where else are we going to put you?
So he's now an old man. He's like in his like 60s or 70s. Let's say he's in his 70s, and Harry shows up, and Harry hasn't aged a day from when we've seen him. But Harry has actually, it's been a couple of years, so maybe he's like 5 years older, but he's actually worked his way up the ladder. And he's now has some more answers, and he's gotten a promotion. And Harry's like, hey, David, how's it going? And David's like, well, as you can see, I'm now like 30 years older and dying, and nobody can like help me out. And Harry's like, okay, well, you know what? I've talked to some people, and you can come out now. Like we could show you around.
Well, you can come out now.
And he's like, and besides, today's a really big day. Like we wanted to, and anyway, he's like leading him out. And as they're walking through the hallway, Harry's like, you know what, David, you've become a bit of a celebrity. We've never had someone from a universe come out before, so this is actually pretty exciting. Plus, it's a big day today. And they go to like a big, I've just blanked on the name. Like a meeting hall, or begins with an A. Our
Assembly hall?
Assembly hall or whatever. Anyway, on TV, they have found the universe in which Supermarat in Turkmenistan gets laid. And the title reads, Supermarat gets laid. And people are celebrating. They're like, yes, we cracked it. We figured it out. And basically, Harry's like, see, you helped us figure this out. Isn't this cool? Like, your universe, actually, it wasn't your universe, sorry, but we needed to know that so that we could find the universe. Basically, he basically says, like, we figured something out because of this that helped us figure out what we needed to do. So you helped us figure out how to help him get laid. This is amazing. And then David's like, I don't fucking care. And Harry's like, okay, I wanted to show you one more thing.
David.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to show you one more thing. So then they're going up an elevator, and eventually Harry's like, this blew my mind. Okay, I found this out. You're not going to believe this. So they go up, and then they're in this giant server room, and they walk out of the elevator, and Harry's leading David through the server room, and Harry's like, okay, so see all these servers? And David's like, yeah, I can see them. Harry's like, okay, so are you ready for this? David's like, yes. Harry's like, we are in a simulation. And David was like, what? And Harry's like, yeah, turns out, apparently, see these servers? This is actually what we're inside right now. This is what it actually looks like on the outside.
What?
And David's like, what are you talking about? Harry's like, yeah. So our universe, the one we're in right now, is actually a simulation. So think about it. Your universe is a universe inside another universe that was actually inside a simulation in another universe. How cool is that? And David's like, Man, this is just way too fucking weird. And then Harry's like, yeah, so like anybody watching this, like apparently we're being observed right now in the simulation by someone outside.
Oh shit.
And then they both look at the camera. And then the movie ends.
Yes! Yes! Oh my god! Oh, round of applause. Hold on. Give me a second. I know this isn't going to translate because it's not a visual medium, but I'm giving Nathaniel a standing ovation.
Oh.
Oh my god. That's your best pitch ever.
Oh.
Like, I know your Matrix one was good, and your downsizing one was good, and your iRobot one is good. That's your best pitch ever. Oh my
thanks,
god.
man.
Save it, cut it, print it, turn that into a movie. It wouldn't even be the Adjustment Bureau anymore. It would just be, that's a whole different movie, and I fucking loved it. That was amazing.
Thanks, man.
Oh man. Fuck, so funny. Man, I mean, I thought my pitch was a decent story, but yours was just so good. I felt like just your pitch had me laughing.
Awesome.
Damn.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. I was not expecting that reaction.
It was so funny. I don't know, maybe.
Thank you.
That was excellent. I don't have anything else to say about this movie. Your movie blows it out of the water.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I got to the point where I can't remember at which point it was, but I just went like, I'm just going to keep going up the ladder and see where this goes. Because I basically at one point, the thing for me is in movies like this, whenever there's like a god figure, it's always assumed that god is benevolent.
Yeah.
And I've kind of just become distrusting of this idea of a benevolent god figure. And I thought, what if God was just an incompetent bureaucrat?
Yeah.
And that was basically what led me down that whole train.
Yeah. I really like the idea, like at the end when you were like, oh yeah, your universe is inside our universe, which was inside another universe, and people are watching us. And then they look at the camera and that's the end. Yeah. Oh, I love that ending where it's just like, like all of this wasn't about anything. It was just people watching us try to figure out how we watched other people stare at camera. Like, there's no other way to end that. I just think it's so absurd and it's funny. It's so good. It's not, when you said bizarre, I was expecting something like maybe adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
Like that kind of bizarre. This is bizarre, but it's funny.
Oh, awesome.
And not terribly inaccessible either.
Oh, cool. Okay. Oh, that's good.
Although, I mean, like, this is me. Like, this is between you and I. We are pretty out there. I didn't think that was terribly inaccessible. I mean, maybe our 8 listeners will tell us if that was inaccessible or not. If they were like, what the fuck are these guys on about? This incoherent jibber jabber about universes inside universes. Like, I bet you these guys like Rick and Morty.
That would be a very accurate assumption to make.
Yeah, super accurate statement.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah,
that's got to be your best, if not one of the best, if not your best pitch, easily.
Oh, thanks, man. Oh, I'm really glad you liked it.
Oh man. Oh, you blew mine out of the water. Mine was too long. If only I could put all those words back into my mouth. I'm kind of glad I went first because yours was way better. Way better.
Well, I mean, you did a better job of sticking to the movie. I think is technically what we're supposed to be trying to do. We never really laid out rules, but I do try to do that. And at a certain point, I just go,
rules to CineMasters. The point wasn't rules. The point is to make a better movie, and you still stuck with some of the themes. That's the big one for me. Is the theme still there, and are some of like the mechanics of the movie still recognizable?
Awesome.
And I definitely think that you do a better job than we got with the original movie. I tried to stick with. I don't know. Yours is way better. I'm not even going to think about mine ever again because that was so good. I love when he comes into the chairman. The chairman's like, what? Wash your hands. Have you sanitized? Like, just what a ridiculous sentiment. Like, you go to meet God and his first thought is, how did you get in here? Have you washed your hands? Exactly. Yeah. Oh my God. All right. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Letterboxd at Draper Nate or Twitter at Nate Draper.
Nice. You can find my band Robot Philosopher all over the interwebs wherever you listen to music. Just type in Robot Philosopher, and yeah, stay tuned to CineMasters. Give us a like or subscribe if you really enjoyed that. We got new episodes coming out every week, and we have video essays by myself coming out every 2 weeks. Next week, I guess we haven't really decided what we're doing, but thanks for sticking with us for our 25th episode. And if you've been with us from the beginning, then thanks for sticking with us for almost 2 years and 25 episodes. So
yeah,
they'll be coming out more regularly now that we're doing this weekly. But thank you so much, and
yeah,
peace
thanks
out.
for listening.
Yeah.